From the studios of Cheshire TV in Keene, New Hampshire, it's The Men's Room, a show by men, about men, and for everyone. Sponsored by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center and hosted by Damian Licata and Forrest Seymour.
Hello everyone, welcome back to The Men's Room. This is a show by men, about men, and for everyone. Okay. Damian Licata, this is Forrest Seymour, and we will be your hosts today. We are, and every day, in fact, that we do the show, pretty much.
True. You can watch it every day on the web.
You can watch us
24/7.
That's right. You could really go nuts. That's right. So we're sponsored by, brought to you by the Monadnock Men's Resource Center, which is a men's organization here in town, of which we are co-directors.
That's right. That's right. And we also, the Monadnock Men's Resource Center also sponsors a drop-in support group for men every Sunday night at 7 that we're going to say more about of the show today. And we have a great guest today. I'm very excited about our guest.
Yep. Some really interesting stuff we're going to talk about men and boys.
Yes.
And lots of other good stuff. So, speaking of good stuff, although it might be a matter of opinion to some,
I suspect it is.
Presidential candidate Barack Obama is going to be coming to Keene, New Hampshire this evening. He'll be at the high school in the gymnasium. I believe they open the doors at 6. Yeah. He'll be there at 6:30.
Yeah. Well, assuming the trains run on time.
Assuming the trains run on time. And there's tickets all over town, various places we can get them, prime roast here and there.
But you know, it's interesting because I think this year, or this presidential season, that the sort of issues around masculinity and gender are really sort of out front there. I mean, you've got a serious female candidate for president, which sort of puts gender on the table. Yep. And then you have Barack Obama, who's a black candidate. And also not like...
But not black enough, by some accounts.
Possibly, right, right. Yeah. So like, is he enough of a black man? Is he enough of a man? I mean, I think that, he's not... Right. He's a gentle speaker in a lot of ways. He doesn't fit traditional notions of masculinity. Remember that period where there were all these pictures of him without his shirt on, when he was swimming?
Making a big deal about how he was supposedly manning up for the purpose of the campaign, which was absurd. But
still, I mean, I think some people that was important. They want to see, is he...
Well, I think it is interesting. I mean, there's been we've talked about it here before, in fact, about all of these conversations about whether is the Democratic Party masculine enough? Are they man enough, and so forth? And the Republican Party is, they're the tough guys. And that's part of their appeal. And I think that after 9/11, I think this country was probably looking for a tough guy.
Yeah. Well, it was a sort of retro, like let's regress back to some sort of notion of security. That's obviously not particularly secure.
But to my mind, I think that this is. It is much more important right now that we be able to build some coalitions, have some dialogues, have some conversations, and unite this country a little bit.
Well, that would be nice. Yeah.
And so those are not always attributes that are traditionally thought of as male.
Right. The sort of conciliatory, coalition building sort of stuff. Right?
Exactly.
But we know differently. Men can do that stuff too. Now.
Right. Yeah.
It's the 21st century.
It is. It is. So, if you're curious to know who this guy Obama is, I would encourage you to go there. In fact, whenever you have an opportunity to see one of the candidates, they come through New Hampshire and through Keene very often.
A couple of the quick things, newsworthy things, and then we got to get on to our guest.
Right.
But I wanted to say that there is a newsletter around town that you may see. It's got the little yellow flap on it, but it's the Voicemail, which is published by the Men's Resource Center for Change out of Amherst, Mass., which we are not formally affiliated with, but definitely loosely affiliated with, and we distribute these around the area. So you'll see there's a stack at the public library and various places around town.
Great cover story this time on having to do with this film Beyond Beats and Rhymes, which is about hip hop and manhood. Really fascinating article. There's been a lot of conversations about that film.
It's great. The other thing that's going on is that the Monadnock Men's Resource Center has endorsed a rally tomorrow to mark the 4th year since the U.S. invasion of Iraq. It's going to be happening downtown Keene, so this is on Saturday the 17th?
Right.
17th. And starts at 10 o'clock, I think, at the college, ends up at the square, and goes until 2 o'clock. So
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you might have a few words to say at that event?
I might if I
I'm
can.
putting you on the spot on the air.
You are. It's true. It's true. Well, you never know about the weather. You know, we'll
That's
see
true.
what that happens with the weather. But
That's
should be good. There's gonna be music, and it's gonna be fun.
It'll be a good event.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So that said, we should move on to our guest.
Please.
We want to have time for our guest, who is a man of many talents. Steve Bernstein has lived in New Hampshire since 1976. He is a master plumber by trade and has a bachelor's degree in human services and a master's degree in environmental science. So we've already covered a whole bunch of realms there. He's an activist and advocate for children and non-humans, and is a renowned humane educator. And over the years, Steve's work has taken on many forms, founding a nonprofit to working as a guardian ad litem for abused children. He's most active and successful in the realm of helping at-risk teens discover their hidden talents, something we hope to talk with him about a good deal today, their hidden talents, dreams, and skills. And his most current undertaking is an apprenticeship program that provides young people with vocational, educational, and personal growth opportunities through one-on-one mentoring, tutoring, and teaching of building trades. So, welcome, Steve. Welcome to the men's room.
Welcome to the men's room. And wow, there is so much there that I want to talk about. But one thing that I heard that I'm really curious about is, what the heck is Humane Educator?
Well, there's a common sense of humane educator which you might hear of in a shelter, per se, where people go out and talk to people about better care for their animals. That's not what this refers to.
Okay.
What I was referring to in my bio as a humane educator is I traveled around New England and visited over 200 schools over a span of time of about 2 to 3 years, that was a curriculum I developed as I was a graduate student at Antioch, pursuing an environmental science degree. And I hooked up with a couple of organizations, did it on my own, and what I did with this curriculum, as well as the curriculum given to me that I adopted and adapted, was talk to young people about the concept of compassion for animals and the environment.
I see. Okay.
And that connects to many, many, many realms and issues that are certainly worthy of conversation and critical thinking that teachers and schools really, I think, wanted in their classroom and in their school.
Compassion is such a crucial piece that I think we often don't in our culture. It's not something that we zero in on as a skill. But
we hear the word a lot, even sometimes oddly in politics, and I don't know that we truly get the true sense of the word as it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah.
So and tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. What your latest thing is.
Well, I would like to talk a little about some evolution as to how I got to where I am now.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah, I think your evolution must be fascinating, because we were talking about, you had mentioned that you are a plumber by trade.
Correct, right.
You have these other degrees, and all of this must come together in some way. The environmental science and so forth. And so it must be an interesting evolution, I would think.
And it's ongoing. And it's also an attempt, I think, personally and maybe even globally and universally, to talk about the connection and interconnection of just about everything to everything. So I try to manifest that in my life. And I was a young man who had a very terribly difficult upbringing. And to this day, I credit a man who reached out to me, who taught me a trade, who to this day, I believe if he wasn't there to mentor me in the South Bronx growing up, I'd still be in jail. And that's what I tell young people today.
So you grew up in New York City,
in the Bronx, yeah.
Yeah.
And learned various trades, stuck with plumbing. It was somewhat in my family. And I worked with my father for many years and eventually moved to New Hampshire, started my own plumbing business in my early 20s. And right about that time, I connected with some people who invited me to sponsor a group of at-risk teens in a program that I was involved with. And that more or less got me going in this field of helping kids like my bio said, discover what's going on inside. And regardless, and maybe with the help of their background, finding strength and becoming successful in life.
Now, these are kids who are getting into trouble at school, maybe into some legal problems?
It started off mostly with kids coming from substance abusive homes.
Okay.
And consequently, a large percentage of those guys became substance abusers or troubled, as we all know. And that led to so many other things, like the bio mentioned. I was a court-appointed advocate for abused children. I started a nonprofit specifically devoted to dedicating my life to figuring out creative ways to help at-risk teens. And that's leading to what's happening today. And that, what I just mentioned is about almost a 20-year span.
Wow.
The nonprofit started almost 10 years ago, and the Department of Justice, among many other entities, schools, our state government sponsored this, local sponsors, Monadnock sponsored it. I had a teen center in Manchester, and locally I had a small program going on where it dawned on me towards the end of my directorship of the nonprofit that I'm still missing the boat with some of these guys. Most of the kids I feel that I've touched have really gotten great help, great support, great direction, great connection, because the essence of what evolved was mentoring, finding people in their lives and outside of their lives to help them learn things that they wouldn't normally learn from their environment. Could be school, could be home, but people outside of this realm is really who the teachers are. So it led me to this, my own blue collar background of realizing, couple that philosophy with teaching a building trade. Why a building trade? It's not only that it was good to me and great to guys like me and young women as well. It's because it's hands-on.
Right.
It's learning by doing. It's creating something of service for the world that you will be paid for. A young person who is sitting in a classroom and not relating to that educational methodology, we're losing by the dozens. In this state alone, 2,000 a year drop out.
Wow.
So,
Well, and you've touched on something I think is really important about sort of a respectful approach to youth, to all of us, but to youth in particular, because I think it gets neglected, is giving them something meaningful to do.
Correct.
That like you say, they're going to build something and it's going to be there, and they can say, "I built that,"
That's
and
right.
they're creating shelter for someone, shelter from the cold. I mean, that's great. I think that often, with teenagers, we forget how important meaning is. I mean, for these teenagers, they're looking at the world and saying, this is good, this is bad. They care passionately about themselves, about things going on around them, and so to hook into that and say, well, if you care, then here's the way to give some meaning to your
and
life.
I think, unfortunately, our systems that we've created, especially education, and I'm not degrading teachers who are the most wonderful, dedicated people in the world, but I think systems seem to, unfortunately, not address that need, which is that particular child, that particular child's interests, needs, wants, dreams, and goals, and how to manifest that in the world with them and for them. And you couple that with a hands-on, very basic building education that incorporates academic subjects, one-on-one interaction with people teaching you, real. I don't mean this as a vocational program in a building in a school.
Right.
I mean it where Billy or Jane is going to a site in the real world, interacting with real people, doing real things, and at the end of the day, the end of the week, at the end of their job, that product stays in the world, and they were paid for
They get
it.
a
Not only
paycheck,
through education, but they got paid for it. It crosses the line between the abstract thing in a classroom, listening to a teacher, to the real world application of their educational skills. That doesn't happen in school, and it certainly doesn't happen for this population of teens who are falling through the cracks and becoming not only a problem to themselves, but society.
Right.
And what about the mentoring aspect of this program that you're talking about? Because you mentioned there's the teaching, you know, there's the one-on-one teaching of the skills and the trades and so forth. What is the mentoring component?
Well, by definition, whether we realize it or not, learning a trade is through mentoring. Now, mentoring became this big word in the last 10 years, but the truth of the matter is mentoring is befriending. Mentoring is teaching. Mentoring is guiding. Those are the embodiments of learning a trade. Especially if you talk to tradespeople, I'm going to say easily 50 to 75% of tradespeople come from a background that is colorful. or is, they may have been a student and learn like mainstream and they had to do hands-on. They know what mentoring is intrinsically. But specifically, mentoring is what I teach to the community, any adult who's interested in learning how to help a young person or a troubled young person through this word called mentoring, is basically non-judgmental, befriending, none of the attitudes that are prevalent in our culture related to adult-child distinctions. We are talking about young adults. They needed to be treated like young adults with respect.
Taken seriously.
And a very significant understanding as to what their developmental stage is at this point in time, which is adolescence, and all that entails. And then couple that with the fact that they may be troubled, there may be trouble at home in their background, or they just might not be a mainstream learner. They are on the road, if there's not an intervention like this, to becoming a statistic.
Now, is this program open to boys and girls?
Yes.
Or it is. And would you say that generally that these are adolescents who have not had a lot of positive male interaction or male involvement in their lives?
I would say that's usually the profile. I would say that's quite often a significant factor in what's happening, especially with a young man.
Yeah.
Aside from the fact that, generally speaking, men are busy. We don't see that kind of parenting going on enough by virtue of what our culture's priorities have turned out to be.
Yeah.
So even when there is a father or a father figure in the home, their level of involvement may not be.
I think it's a major factor, and you couple that with socioeconomic disadvantage or substance abuse or any of those issues that could confront people and how it relates down to the child and what person's legacy ends up being is quite often dismal, because now we don't even have the support net, I believe, of a functional society with other adults picking up the slack. So all the more reason to create a service, for lack of a better word, called mentoring. If we're all invested in this community, we have to invest in kids other than our own. I believe that, and that was the essence of what this work's about.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think what you're talking about in terms of this particular program, of this particular method of teaching trades to these kids, this is a going concern you're talking about. This is a business as well. Correct. Which is why they're able to earn a paycheck.
Well, two major factors entered into why I had to make this a business. Number one is my disdain, and I own that word, for how, as a culture, we have determined that in order to do good work in the world, it has to be something called a nonprofit. And a nonprofit, one of the aspects of a nonprofit is to receive funds from the write-offs of other entities, businesses, etc. And to me, that's backwards culture. I think we should be doing good work because good work is the way to raise a good society. So that said, that was a factor towards saying this should be a business. Demonstrate a business on how to just do good work. Well, it sounds great, but it's also a problem because I'm pretty much a loner with this philosophy. So how to make it a business became a business puzzle for me, which was, well, I believe in the building trades. I am a master trades person. I know other tradespeople, make the mentoring happen under that umbrella of trades, and then if you extrapolate that a little bit, create real estate opportunities by fixing up old houses. Not necessarily building new, because I got a thing against new development too, but focus on, you know, reduce, recycle, reuse, that whole environmental model.
Yeah.
At the same time, possibly attracting people who are interested in this cause in a very practical way, which is, here's the building we're fixing up. I am employing these apprentices to do it. What do you think of the idea? Would you like to help support somehow? And this, as we're talking here, is one of my invitations to the community to talk to me about it and develop more ideas around it. The second part of that I didn't mention before is apprenticeship officially is an underused, undervalued educational format that exists in the state of New Hampshire and in the United States for the exact reasons I'm talking about it. The problem, I believe, started when we started losing tradespeople to fill trades. And you ask any union, we are lacking tradespeople. It's a shame.
Yeah.
There's a population of individuals who used to fill those roles. So when college became a big business, and I think the philosophy filtered down that everybody should go to college, I don't know if I buy that, and I don't know if a lot of other people buy that, because there's a lot of people who don't even make it in high school. No fault of theirs, it's our system.
And there's a lot of people who make it through these days, and I say make it through because
Barely.
they just barely do.
Right. And then what?
And then what? They're still not really prepared for.
And they're saddled with a bunch of,
building a life,
they're saddled with you know, $20,000 a
debt.
month.
So it's I think it's a renaissance of a number of things all at once. Revitalizing trades, saving literally the lives of those kids, and providing the opportunity for a community to re-embrace people that we have dropped.
Well, and I would say that I think, you know, given that it's the men's room here and sort of think about the men's piece of this, that you know, as you were saying, that there's been a lack of apprenticeship mentoring sort of opportunities, and that's a loss for young people, but it's also a loss for the mentors who aren't able to do that. And I think that as you touched on, that men have in some ways, and this is a gross generalization, but still, it's been harder for men to sort of see their role in how in our society and how to give to our society, how to be generous. And this is a piece of what you're.
Well,
I assume that there's a role for other men besides yourself in this.
This is an opportunity for all of us to attain enlightenment. There's nothing short of that. This is what we're supposed to do as human beings. Help each other, especially young people who are having trouble, and turn that around into something green and positive. What happens is a community thrives. A community changes from being afraid of that teenage corner to, well, there's Joey. Let's see what he's doing.
Towards needing that teenager on the corner.
Needing, wanting, embracing.
Exactly.
Something happened in our world, and it's all shook up to me. And so this is my attempt. And will I be successful? I'm successful every single day when I think like this. Because after I leave here, I go and see a few young people who are working on my job site. Is it enough? No. It's never enough.
So if people are interested in being involved, supporting this, maybe they have some kid they think ought to be plugged into what you're doing, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, I got a website that I'm building, so, you know, have some patience with that. But the very first thing, and maybe at this point the only thing you'll see on the website, is this. It's called Aim High Apprenticeship. Apprenticeship, internship, mentorship for high school age youth. Aim High.
Aim High. So it's like aimhigh.com?
No.
That'd be too simple. So how do people...
www.stevebernstein.ws for whatever the new thing is. I think.
Wonderful stuff.
Website.
Yeah, website.
And on it, you'll see Aim High.
Okay. And is there an email or phone number or something?
I think it's all there. If not, my email is coolbernie54@hotmail.com. Cool Bernie, just as it.
Cool Bernie.
Cool Bernie.
54.
@hotmail.com. And can I get my phone number?
Yeah, oh please.
313-99 or 7. I'm very open to hearing from anybody and everybody. The trouble I've had, and if I have a minute to talk about the trouble.
Yeah, we have just about a minute, and then we have to
Right.
wrap up.
Is that it's not understood. Hopefully this show will help people understand it. It's not what teachers and schools and those associated with young people are used to. They're more academically inclined. If they're failing, they're failures. This is a philosophy first, but a practical embodiment of it is this approach to helping kids. I might be ahead of my time as usual, but this is very, very, very old. This is ancient.
Right.
This is what we used to do.
Well, the obvious opportunities for building self-esteem alone for these kids, I think, is tremendous.
Right.
Yeah. I had wanted to sort of touch base with you around the environmental science aspect of your background.
Okay.
I mean, you have an degree in environmental science, and I've always been sort of interested in this sort of connection between masculinity and the way that traditionally we have been, the attitude has been towards the environment in general, and how we treat the world, and how we treat animals, and how we treat this whole idea of needing to dominate nature. And this has been I don't think it's very arguable that this is a patriarchal society and has been for a number of years, decades,
Centuries?
millennia, and that and it still is socially a male dominated society in many respects. What's your take on that whole idea that environmentalism can be considered even a gender issue in a way?
Yeah.
In 30 seconds or less.
Okay.
Yeah, 30 seconds or less. Thank you.
Well, I would say, then if I have 30, now 25, I would say take a look at the distinction between teaching a young person to shoot and kill animals, to ride roughshod through the woods with machines. These are usually young men. Versus, and all the other things we could conjure up, especially in New Hampshire, versus an approach that talks about compassion. We raise young men to dominate and to be powerful over. I'm talking about a different idea, a different system of embracing nature, each other, ourselves. That's called compassion.
Well, good luck with that. It
Thank
sounds
you.
like a great thing, and maybe we'll check in with you down the road a little bit and see how it's going, and you can give us an update.
That would be great.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
So, wow, so much to think about, and we have almost no time left.
I wanted more time, but what are you going to do?
We got to zip through our. What are we going to talk about?
Well, one of the things I just want our dedicated viewers know out there is that we did not do a new show last week. In case you were wondering, I saw this one. What happened? There was no heat in this building last week, because one of those things happens, and we were not able to shoot. We had scheduled AJ Page, who was going to come on and talk about veterans issues and the homeless, and he is going to be back at a later date.
Great.
We'll let you know.
Great. So real quickly, drop-in support group every Sunday night, 25 Roxbury Street, right next to Aubuchon's Hardware. Starts at 7 o'clock every Sunday night. If you need more information, you can go to our website or call us on our toll-free number, which you'll see at the end of the show. April 14th is the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes March.
That's right.
We're all going to wear little pink shoes.
Yeah, or some color.
Some color, yeah. And I want to thank Don Cunningham, our director, who's worked so hard on making the show
absolutely.
happen. So
We could not do this without you, Don. Thank you.
that's right. And we'll see you all next week on the Men's Room.
Thanks.